folks, and welcome to my video today. This is going to be the first of two videos. The second one is going to be a little bit more light-hearted and something you would expect me to do on my channel. If this is your first time on my channel today, do me a big favor, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button, maybe liking this video, and you certainly have my permission, not that you need it, to share this video anywhere you want to, even on TikTok, which I stay well away from. So, in my hand, and be very careful what comes out of your mouth, is Lord of the Rings, the Blu-ray edition, the greatest film trilogy of all time. There are no contenders. Nothing will ever come near to the greatness of Peter Jackson's adaptation of the j.r.r. Tolkien books of the same names. So, why do I talk about this? And why is there a picture of the rather attractive Morfydd Clark? Well, I'll get into that in a few seconds. But yesterday, Vanity Fair unleashed on the world the first images, actual images of Amazon Prime's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I mean, if Tolkien was alive today, he would slap Jeff Bezos across the face, Batman style, and say, hell man, what are you doing with the grammatical use of these words, the repetitiveness of those words in that sentence? Of course, Tolkien would not even approve of this because it's a dumpster fire waiting to happen. And, oh God, this is going to be... I'm just so frustrated. You know, you know what I heard Amazon were going to be making this show, and already I was getting worried because I thought nothing could ever touch the original trilogy that Peter Jackson made. I'm not a big fan of the Hobbit series. If I've got to be honest, I don't like them at all. I've watched the films back to back, but that 48 frames per second just really took me out of the picture. And I think those movies, and what you had Toriel, played by Lily What's-Her-Face from Lost, you know, she's in there as a brand new character that we didn't need because apparently Orlando Bloom's character needed a bit of a love interest, and that was kind of lost on me. It's like, oh God, whatever. So let's just get into this article really quickly. Got to warn you, it's pretty cringy. You've probably seen other videos online now, but hey, come on. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, you know already that this is something I'm going to be covering. So yeah, Galadriel, played by Morfydd Clark, comes up for air. Now, apparently this is a scene that they shot when the world went into pandemic meltdown. So they had to kind of film this scene quickly. And apparently it's quite triumphant because she's rising from the depths of probably a 4-foot swimming pool. And it's like, yeah, look at me, I'm powerful, blah, blah, blah. That's not the end of it, by the way. It gets more laughable. How am I going to carry on with this video? I don't know what I'm going to do. Wow, it's dreadful. Now, Morfydd Clark, the only thing I know her for is the film Crawl. I think it's like referring to Crawl Space, you know, the giant alligator movie that was out in 2019. I kind of liked it. It was a good film, but I don't remember who she played in it. So, you know, forgive me if I remember Kyla Scolodario, who was in that film. I remember her more, but not Morfydd Clark that much, which is a shame. So let me just read this opening paragraph to you. So Galadriel's world is a raging sea. Obviously not a pun on the picture we just saw of her rising from the ocean in inverted commas. Far from the wise, ethereal elven queen that Cate Blanchett, who is the greatest of all time, by the way, brought to Peter Jackson's acclaimed films, the Galadriel played by Morfydd Clark in Amazon's upcoming series is thousands of years younger, as angry and brash as she is clever, and certain that evil is looming closer than anyone realizes. By episode 2, by the way, I forgot to let you know, they've already filmed season 2, so pretty much like what Peter Jackson did with the original films, he made us back to back. Amazon, unfortunately, have made 2 seasons back to back, so if you hate the first season, you're gonna hate the second season, most likely. So, of course, by episode 2, her warnings are set adrift. Again, not an intended water pun, but probably from Vanity Fair's point of view, it probably is very much intended. Now, she's struggling for survival, blah, blah, blah. And I don't understand this because she's an elven queen. If you look at her titles, Galadriel is, and you've got to bear this in mind, by the way, when I get back to the main point of this article, she's the Princess of Noldor, the Lady of Lorien, Lady of the Galadrim. So that's her title, right, by birth and by the fact that she's earned them. So we go back to this again. Amazon show, which debuts on Prime Video on September the 2nd, which is j.r.r. Tolkien's birthday, by the way. So yeah, let's not spit on the man's grave, shall we? Is not based on the Tolkien novel per se, but on the vast backstory, the appendices of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's the appendices that Tolkien laid out before he passed away. He didn't actually turn them into anything further. 5 seasons will likely cost the studio well over $1 billion. Where is that money coming from? From the fact that you order from Amazon and the fact that you subscribe to their Premiership streaming service, which I've actually now unsubbed from. I'm not giving them any more of my money. I don't need to do that. That kind of budget might decimate most other studios, but Tolkien, like space travel, is a personal obsession for Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, or as I like to call him, Iclops. Jeff Bezos is the real life Lex Luthor of this world, okay? He's just power mad, he's hungry. His mandate was, I want my own Game of Thrones. You can't do that, dude, because there's already a Game of Thrones. You can't make your own Game of Thrones. That's not how it works. You can try and make an original IP that might be loosely based on Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones, let's not forget, actually got its inspiration from Lord of the Rings. How else was George.R.R. Martin going to write his epic fantasy stories? So, the big business venture that will allow him to create the most expensive, elaborate TV series will ever be made. While Jackson is not connected to the project, and why would he? He would not touch this thing with a 10-foot barge pole. It's not connected to his movies, as well as their spiritual successor, Game of Thrones. Well, why will it be? Because it's nothing. Game of Thrones has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, except for the fact it was inspired by it. Proved that there is a massive audience for immersive fantasy. Yes, it did prove that, but then we basically know how from season 6 onward of Game of Thrones that went downhill because the creators did not want to adapt the language or the actual books that George wrote. So it's their fault. You can't blame Martin for that one. The showrunners, Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, who we never heard of, are agonizingly aware of the pressure. Their series will juggle 22 stars, multiple storylines from deep within the crevices of the dwarf mines and the misty mountains to the high politics of the elven kingdom of Lindon and the humans' powerful Atlantis-like island Numenor. Have I pronounced that rightly? Numenor. All this will center eventually around the incident that gives the trilogy its name. Yikes. Now look at this picture of Galadriel here, played by Morfydd Clark. She's the commander of the Northern armies, and she's wearing armor. But remember a few moments ago I just described to you what her title is, but she's wearing armor. I know this is a version set thousands of years before the Cate Blanchett version, but why is she wearing armor? I don't get it. She's already a powerful woman. She doesn't need to wear armor. Okay, now I'm not a scholar. I'm not an expert for Lord of the Rings. I am a fan. There are people much more qualified out there like Tom Shippey, who was a consultant that Amazon brought in to work on the show, but he left. I'm betting he left because he probably saw what this dumpster fire of a show was turning into. He's not losing any sleep over it, except for the fact he probably tried to save this show from going into the woke disaster that it's going to become. But, you know, that's neither here or there. Of course, we haven't seen a proper trailer yet, but from what I'm being led to believe, we should be getting one pretty soon, and then we can judge that on its premise. But look at this photo here of Morfydd Clark and the background. Now, this is why I use this particular image for my thumbnail, because this reminds me of a YouTube thumbnail, and they've done that weird thing of blurring at the background. It looks to me like they've shot it in 48 frames a second, but this is a still, so it's not really, I can't really judge it by that, but I'm betting you any money this is going to be shot 48 frames a second or near enough that accelerated rate. Oh boy, here we go. Yep, this is what you are waiting for. So again, and I've got to point this out, I have nothing against the actors in these stills. But again, it's the messaging I've got more of a problem with than anything else. Right, Owain Arthur as Prince Durin IV, Prince of the bustling subterranean realm of Khazad Dûm. The Dwarven Princess Disa, played by Sophia Nomvetti, standing at Khazad Dûm's entrance. But from what I've been told, the Tolkien has never described the dwarfs as being of African origin. So you can clearly tell where they're going with this. The Sylvan elf Arondir, played by Ishmael Cruz Cardova, is a character who's been created for this series. His pose here reminds me of the poses I used to do for Instagram back in the day, where you stand dramatically, look at a spot on the wall, create that dramatic effect, and then you just go for it. That's an Instagram picture waiting to happen. That's all it is. Oh, God.
Did you have some kind of mechanism, in a sense, so that you could make sure that you were true to Tolkien?
Well, we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honour Tolkien by putting his messages into it. And
my God, basic common sense. We didn't want to put our messages into the movie. Respect Tolkien. Make sure his messages, his themes are in the movie. It's a simple thing to do, isn't it? Mind you, this was 2001 or 2002, according to that interview. Wow. And look where we've come to today, folks. 20 years later, we're now getting the complete opposite of what we used to enjoy years and years ago. You know, I've got friends of mine who'd say to me, Jace, we know you don't like this stuff of today, but you know, if you want to go, but you can't have a Renaissance period ever again. You can't get the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s, 50s, oh hell, even the 1950s. You know, you check out a film like the Creature from the Black Lagoon, okay? Julie Adams. Are you going to get a character or an actress like her again, looking that way she did in that film? No, because today you can't objectify women, but it's okay to objectify men, right? That double standard, because yeah, we all need that, don't we?
Tolkien himself was horrified at modern analogies being placed on his work. He always rejected the notion that the stories were based on World War II and the rise of Hitler and all that. I think to apply modern political thinking on a story that is essentially 50 years old is a little bit inappropriate.
Tolkien's famous for disliking allegory and maintaining with great force in his foreword to The Lord of the Rings that this is not an allegory.
As for any inner meanings or message, it has in the intention for the author none. It is neither allegorical nor topical. I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done so since I grew old and wary enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or feigned, with its varied applicability to the thought and experience of readers. I think that many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other in the purposed domination of the author.
So an allegory, as you Yankees like to say, or allegory, as us Brits like to say. So apples and pears, apples and oranges, whatever you want to take it as. You know where we're going with this. So that's where Amazon have probably taken that interpretation, and they've kind of disregarded what Tolkien's thoughts are about his original version of The Lord of the Rings. And of course, Amazon now want to give us this representation of what they want to put in here. All it is, you know what I think it actually is at the end of the day? It is about eradicating The Lord of the Rings, that greatest movie trilogy of all time. That's what they want to do, because it's got a 99% Caucasian cast, and you're not allowed to enjoy that type of entertainment anymore, folks. And that is why, folks, I can't wait to watch John Boorman's Excalibur from 1981, a film about King Arthur and his famous sword. I've never seen it before, actually, but I'm dying to watch it because we've got such greats as Helen Mirren, Sherry Lungi, and it's going to be an amazing watch. It's like the film that really set the whole fantasy genre in motion, obviously predating the Lord of the Rings films and obviously the TV series of Game of Thrones. So when I do watch it, I'll give you my afterthoughts about it, and I can't wait. But let us talk about one more thing, because obviously they're really pushing hard for this show to be a success. And I think one of the downfalls of this show is going to be the fact that it's cost so much already. It's all gone into CGI heavy effects. It's the same thing that killed John Carter of Mars. Remember that movie? It's a good film, but if they actually used practical effects, that film would have cost a lot less. Would it have been a bigger success? Probably not, but that's neither here or there. Lenny Henry, let's talk about him. He's really excited to be playing a Black Hobbit. But Lenny Henry, let us not forget, is not really free from comedy sins. As you're about to see, now this man is all about diversity. It's about promoting more equality in movies and in entertainment. But this, I believe, is from 1981, from a TV show called Tiswas, back in the day. This is a kids' TV show. And this, like Calvin Harris, sung once, was acceptable in the 80s.
See you, Nutter. Once upon a time, there...
Yeah, that's Lenny Henry playing a Black Hobbit back in 1981. Playing a, I'm not going to say any more about that, but I think that's one of the things that's going to probably come and bite him back in the ass when this show airs on the September the 2nd. You know what I think should happen to entertainment these days, or what should happen to the world in general? Forget about the Russians invading Ukraine if that ever happens. I'm just going to quote Alec Trevelyan here from GoldenEye, that in order for the world to reset itself, it needs to go back to the 1940s economy. That's what it needs to go back to, because then people will be forced to make their own kind of entertainment again, or make the entertainment we enjoyed years and years ago. Well, some of those who were around in that time. Well, I've taken a deep breath, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. It was a pain to go through, but also very laughable. So if you enjoyed the video today, please leave a like, smash that subscribe button, leave a comment below, and if I were you, I would see me on my next video.
Like and subscribe, or get your nuts Krogan crushed with Jason King.